Okay, friends, so now is the time for the Dhamma talk. And what is the Dhamma? Well, for Buddhists, it means the teachings of the Buddha. And, what are the teachings of the Buddha? The Dhamma. But, the Buddha's teachings center around the fundamental conundrum or predicament that living beings, especially human beings, find themselves in. We're born as a young child, we start to grow up, and we learn everything from our parents or our culture, our friends. Nowadays, of course, media and the TV, and our mind just absorbs like a sponge, the young baby, the child, as it's growing up. It's just copying what other people do. If the parents and others are using bad language, they just pick that up and do it. Or, if they're, smashing bugs and cockroaches and killing and other kind of violence, they might get conditioned to that. And, before they know it, a person is, a young adult, and they're trapped in this cycle of repetitive behavior and starting to have to experience the consequences of their actions, and to experience the pain, the suffering, or the guilt, worry, remorse, and fear that comes through the way they've learned to act, speak, and think. And really, they don't even know how it happened, right? It just all of a sudden, it's happened. And that was the Buddha's big question too. How did all this happen? Suffering especially. Because the Buddha's teaching is different from some other type of religions that focus on, who created this earth, or who created the world, and when exactly it was created, as if that was important. But the Buddha wasn't interested in that. He was really interested in the, fundamental gut experience of people, which is suffering. And, basically every being is trying to live in happiness and to avoid pain. Would you all agree to that? I mean, even a little insect, a little ant, crawling along the ground. If you put your finger down in front of the ant, it will probably stop and maybe, go around or go back. So why does it stop? Because it senses some danger there, right? I mean, just look at it. An ant compared to my finger is equal to a human being standing at the foot of the World Trade Center when it came down. Were they scared? You saw them running, right? Because they didn't want to die. So the same way, every living creature, even down to the smallest insect, wants to live in a state of peace, just to get enough food to eat, to live comfortably. And so that's the main drive of life. But yet, why does so much suffering come? So again, this was a question that the Buddha had. And it comes down to the way the Buddha saw it, and through his meditation, the Buddha was like a scientist. A lot of people think the Buddha was a big religious teacher. Well, okay, some people may think that, but in the beginning, he was basically like a scientist. And through scientific method, through sitting down to meditate, using his body as a laboratory and his mind concentration as a high-powered microscope, he looked within himself and explored the body. What is this body? How does it tick? How does it work? What's affecting the body? All these sight, sound, smells, taste, touches coming through it. Mind's reaction. And how it reacted with greed or hatred or delusion. And you saw how that law of karma worked. That, based on our actions, thoughts, speech, and actions, and beliefs, we do things out of greed and desire to get pleasurable things, into having aversion and anger or hatred toward things we don't like, the people that threaten our security, and we get caught up in like breaking all the precepts, as I already mentioned, and then incurring the effects of that. So that was really what the Buddha was interested in. How did all that come about? And so he formulated, his teachings are formulated around the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering exists. Then what is the cause of the suffering? And he saw it was basically ignorance, not understanding the truth about our mind, not understanding the truth of how this mind operates in this world of multitudinous objects. And so not understanding that, not understanding the law of karma, how our thoughts, speech, and actions have their results. Through the natural laws. And then but then he also saw how the suffering can be overcome. Now, if you understand the root cause of what causes suffering, then by deductive reasoning, you can understand how it can be removed. That's what the Buddha said. Once you understand how something is built, you understand how you can take it apart or rebuild it if you know those fundamental laws. So that's what the Buddha saw in the mind. If we understand the mind, and we understand how the mind has got us caught in the web of karma, the web of cause and effect, then we can understand how we can change it. or he understood how we can change it, to act in a more harmonious way with the world around us. And so really the whole of the Buddha's teaching is about that, how to free the mind from the cause of suffering. And we could say there's many, many causes of suffering in the world, but they all can be narrowed down to kind of one point. And that is the mind caught in dualism, or the dualistic mind, the ego being trapped in the sense of ego and dominated by thoughts of I, me, and mine. That everything we do in the world is behind all of our actions is I, me, and mine. And so, the Buddha had boiled it all the way down to that essential point. And then he asked, how did that I come about? And so, take a little ride with me, okay? We're gonna go back in time. Okay, let's go back to the time of the point of conception. Okay, the mother and father produce some material elements, create a newly formed little, thing, fetus or whatever, And then at that time, consciousness is like a spark that begins that process of cell division in life. So the moment of conception, there was just a one-celled organism. And in the space of 9 months, because of that, the spark of life is there, it kept, dividing. And that spark of life is basically the consciousness. And this is where the Eastern teachings and modern science disagree. That, Western science believes that the brain produces consciousness. But the Buddha and Eastern teachings said, no, it doesn't. The brain affects our consciousness. It's a filter, but our consciousness came from another source, a past life. And this is the fundamental problem of Western culture, because they don't understand that, and they've then become trapped. So I hope I'm not losing anybody yet. Okay. So the mind and the body, basically, with every cell division, consciousness went into every succeeding cell. And then we come to, I've heard now it's something like 7 trillion cells in the human body, in the adult human body. Or does that come down to a baby's body? I don't know. And a few children. And they're all connected. Every cell has a kind of consciousness. And they're all connected in the inner internet. And they can talk to each other. You stubbed your toe and it sends signals to the brain. Pain. Do something. Or you cut your finger. Sends messages to the brain and other places. Hey, produce some clotting cells. Stop this bleeding. Or disease comes into the body, virus, and alerts the immune system. Hey, get rid of these guys. Right? So there was natural wisdom there. And all that came about through, just natural wisdom. An IBM computer, AI didn't create it. Now they say AI, artificial intelligence. This is natural intelligence. The intelligence that could create a marvelous human body with all of those things. I mean, the human body is said to be the highest state of evolution that we know of as of yet. But anyway. And basically the body and mind were working in a unit because they weren't separated. The consciousness was in each cell. That means they're fused together. That means in this body, all of our billions of cells, there's that consciousness. And all of that was occurring basically in the present moment. But then comes birth. So what happens at birth? The baby comes out, and the doctor pulls out the scissors and cuts the cord. Now the baby gets separated. Now it's on its own. It becomes isolated. And then the parents give it a name, little Johnny, little Susie. And the relatives come over and hold it, and goo, giving it all this attention. And according to all the child developmental psychologists, the baby's mind for the first 6 months or so is in a kind of an oceanic state. That means it's a very expanded, its consciousness is not focused behind the eyeballs with any idea of an I or me. It's very expansive. And most of your mothers who have raised children probably have known that in the first 6 months, But a child might feel some pain, but a lot of times it's just smiling for no reason, right? Because it's in a state of present moment awareness. It has nothing to judge, nothing to compare. There's no past and future to think about. And that's why it's basically pretty happy. Of course, it does feel pain and some hunger and so on, but then after several months or more of people coming over and calling its name, little by little it starts to look. Any of you mothers remember the first time when you called its name, it actually looked? So now what happened? Now it's identifying some word with somehow, that's this thing. And now it starts to paying more attention to this. This is a Johnny? And then little by little, people come and bring it things. Like his sweet grandmother brings the first chocolate for the young baby, and he tastes the chocolate. And gets a big grin on his face because it produces a pleasurable feeling. And then maybe the father or uncle holds the baby too tightly and causes a little bit discomfort. And it starts to recognize that face as a source of discomfort if it happens, several times over again. Maybe somebody else doesn't give it anything, and it doesn't even pay attention to them. It's kind of an indifferent. And then the child starts, because now it experienced both pleasure and pain. And it's naturally attracted toward pleasurable feeling and repulsed by unpleasant feeling. And so then it starts to hope that that face that brought it a pleasurable feeling, like, the mother or so, comes again in the future. And that the face that brought it a painful feeling doesn't come again. So that is the birth, that's the beginning of the past and the future. That's where the past and the future begins. And is starting to discriminate between pleasurable feeling and painful feeling. And then wanting more pleasant feeling in the future. And remembering from the past to keep away the unpleasant feeling. And that process just keeps snowballing with every experience that comes through the baby's senses. And the mind memorizes all of those experiences. And the baby gradually gets drawn out of itself. And you know, when a baby reaches, 2 years old now, the terrible twos, baby starts crawling around. Right? Well, they see something, right? Then they start crawling towards it. Now their mind is out there. It's not in the body. That's the beginning of suffering. The disconnection from the body. And the mind projecting into the future. And so that disconnect from the body in the present moment is really, in my view, the deepest level of suffering. And even the Buddha also saw that. He might not have given exactly in those terms, but the sense of self, and the sense of self develops, and the sense of self, its whole life revolves around pleasure and pain. The search for pleasure and to avoid pain. And everything that it does, thinks about, and does is oriented toward it. Now, this may be a little bit hard to understand just on the surface level, but this is very deep. You know, that's why the Buddhist teaching is very deep, deep Dhamma. But so anyway, so as the child grows older, the more it starts thinking in the past and the future, especially the future, the more it gets drawn out of itself. And then we becoming insensitive to our body because we're no longer really intimately connected in the body. And we stop paying attention to its deeper needs. Or because of greed, we start consuming things that are maybe not so healthy for the body. Doing things that, in our rush to get what we want or get away from what we don't want, not being aware and mindful, we trip and fall down, we get cut, we hurt our body, we get in accidents by rushing toward the future, not paying attention to the present moment. Trip over something, fall down, break your arm, so many kind of accidents. And all that occurs because we've lost that centeredness in the present moment and that centeredness in the body. And then we start doing things that cause harm to the body, like smoking cigarettes when you're a young kid. And I talk from my own experience. You're a teenager, right? Because of peer pressure and other things. You want to be part of the crowd, right? Whether you're a boy or a girl or in between, whatever, So you want to be part of the crowds and start smoking, and then after a few months, the body starts going, starting to tell you something. And you go to light up a cigarette, and the body's trying to say, don't do that, don't do that. But the mind says, shut up. Right? And that could be for junk food, that could be for any number of things that might not be good for our body or mind. And so this same scenario has just snowballed thousands, if not millions, of times, as we're growing up, especially if you're already 20, 30 or more years we've accumulated all of these type of habits and becoming totally obsessed with the past and the future and not grounded in the present moment. And almost all injuries are self-inflicted. That means you do things unmindfully. I mean, the normal kind of things like tripping over something because you're rushing, or you're cutting your vegetables for your evening meal, and thinking, daydreaming about something, and cut your finger because you weren't paying attention to it. Or you reach out quickly to get something, you knock a glass of milk off the table and break it. It gets on somebody else's clothes and they get angry about it and punch you in the nose. You see, so every kind of problem, most of them, I say 95%, are because of that unmindfulness. And unmindfulness is basically not being centered, grounded in the present moment with that kind of alertness. So we've lost that natural connection. And then, of course, to get the objects of our greed. See, before we were perfectly content. Young, baby before 6 months is pretty much content, right? It just sleeps and sitting around and doing this, and or even as a young child, girls could play with dolls for several hours, or boys could, pull a red wagon around the yard, and be satisfied, right? Then they get more complex. They want more and more. And then if we don't have the means to get what we want, we might start stealing. Right? We might tell lies in order to get what we want. And then we have to suffer the worry and guilt and worry of getting caught. Why is somebody going to find out? And, all the other negative actions. So all those 5 precepts that we've already talked about, and which the group here today, they're taking 5 precepts, those, almost every aspect of suffering in the world comes from breaking those precepts, one or the other, in varying amount of degrees, by an individual as well as in the society. And it all comes because we've lost that contentment with the present moment. We're thinking it's going to be better on the other side. And that causes us to rush and be unmindful and then cause suffering to others too. So really that's kind of the global picture of the Dhamma. That's kind of the big picture of the Dhamma about how the nature of suffering and the nature of the predicament that people find themselves in. And then by the time you're 30 or 40 years old or more, when you hear the Dhamma for the first time, it's those habits and neurons of the body and the nervous system are so deeply entrenched, it becomes very difficult to change them. The habits, those negative habits of breaking the 5 precepts or other negative actions based on I, me, and mine, or greed, hatred, and delusion. And that's really, that's what the Buddha saw that clearly, and that's his whole teaching was based on that, understanding suffering, the cause of the suffering, which is craving. But craving is because of the craving is for the self, the I, having, clinging to the sense of I and losing that connection with the present moment. We're no longer contented. And now with Western advertisements, it's worse because they keep on saying you can't be happy without this. And, you have to have more and more different things, and people believe that. And that's why it's kind of a vicious cycle. So it takes a very strong medicine. The Buddha saw that, wow, this is pretty deep, you know. And so he devised a method of how to disentangle the mental tangle. Actually, there's a little jingle. Somebody, a deva, I think, came to the Buddha one time, and he said, you know, the inner tangle in the outer tangle. This world's entangled in a tangle. And I asked Master Gotama, who succeeds in disentangling this tangle? And so his answer was, when one is standing on the solid ground of morality or sila, or it means skillful action, and then sharpens his mind with concentration and wisdom, that person succeeds in disentangling this tangle. And basically the tangle, the inner tangle and the outer tangle. The outer tangle is all the sensory objects out there, you know, all these billboards, you know, proclaiming you can't live without me. I have to have it. And, you know, it's all the millions of objects that are out there on the internet. People are scouring the internet for hours, you know, trying to find. The mind just get all tangled up. That's the outer tangle, so or the actual objects of the external world. But the inner tangle is our tangle of confusion and the tangle of the habits. That means the neurons and so on that keep on repeating its habits over and over again. And the ignorance that also doesn't know the truth, so it simply follows what everybody else does, doesn't really think for itself. And that's why, you know, people might live to 80, 90 years old, but their mind is still tangled up. And they die in confusion. And then their mind has to get recycled again, come back again to try to untie the knots. So from the Dhamma point of view, each lifetime is another chance to untie the knots that our mind is tied from previous in the past. But how to do it, that's the thing. A lot of people say, yeah, you should do it, you should do it. Practice meditation, follow the Dhamma. Then people say, how? So that's why you have to learn how to do it. That's why we follow the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha was a map maker. You know, if you have a map, you want to go somewhere, if you want to travel from, you know, Washington, D.C. to, you know, Florida, you think, oh, I can find my own way. And you just get in your car and start driving, you get distracted, you know, maybe, you know, drinking a beer or something, smoking a joint, you know, and, you know, you don't follow the signs and you miss the important turnoffs. You wind up in Omaha, Nebraska, instead of sunny South Florida. And so, but so in terms of finding the way back to our original mind, finding our way back to sanity, finding our way back to contentment, the inner peace and happiness, we need to follow somebody who's been there, done that, such as the Buddha or other enlightened sages. So anyway, that's why the fourth noble truth of the Buddha was the path, the way to live, think, and meditate that will disentangle the tangle. And the very first part of that is the right understanding. We'll talk more about that later. But basically, so the practice of meditation is, the process of disentangling the tangle. As I mentioned before, the Buddha took up his search for enlightenment as a scientist. So he went around asking different people how to meditate. And, they kept on giving him, he meditated with different masters, but, they told him ways to meditate that, he tried it and perfected it. He says, I don't think that's the real deal, So finally he left them and went off by himself and sat down under the Bodhi tree. And he used his own body as a laboratory. He said, why should I go around and ask others how to meditate? Go around and ask others for the truth. The truth is inside, I'll find it. And that's what he did. And so the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which are the Buddha's teachings about how to do that, how to get back to your roots, so to speak, get back to the original consciousness, awareness, the present moment. And so that's really what, the practice of mindfulness is. It starts with, mindfulness of the body. Because, one of the important statements of the Buddha was that the world, the arising of the world, the ceasing of the world, and the path leading to the ceasing of the world is right here within this 5 or 6 foot long body with its nervous system, memory, and consciousness. That's the world for the Buddha. Now our mind creates the world. So it originates, in our consciousness. Then how do we reach our consciousness? Could anybody see your consciousness in this morning's meditation? How many people got lost in your thoughts this morning in meditation? Well, be honest. Okay, why did you get lost in your thoughts? Because you didn't see it coming. You were trying to just sit there and count your breaths, or repeat the, in, sitting, out, sitting. But before you knew it, you were either asleep or you were enveloped in some thought cloud. Is it? That means you didn't see your consciousness going there. That's because it's not easy to see. That's because you were half sleepy and you weren't grounded in the body. That means the present moment. So, the mind operates through the body. But the mind is much subtler than the body. So it's happening, the mind is originating deep in the unconscious. It means all of our memories and repressed feelings and so on is sort of in the unconscious mind. But because our mind is just basically on the surface or lost out there, and it's not kind of grounded in the body, that's why we can't see it coming. And we get lost in our thoughts before we even know what was happening. We get caught up in our anger before we even saw it coming. Or confusion, or sadness. And so that's why the the mindfulness of the body is really the first stage of learning how to, so to speak, get back home, to come back home to the present moment. Or to actually, be able to, see your mind and thoughts. So in the Buddha's teachings of the four foundations of mindfulness, it starts with the Buddha's first instructions in meditation are to sit down, cross your legs, and keep your back straight. Did you hear that? Keep your back straight. People miss that fact. Because you see people meditate, like that. So, the Buddha didn't mince his words, didn't waste the words. Everything he said was very, very important. So keeping the back straight, that's why that's really the first thing. Because the mind operates through the nervous system that has to be in its optimal condition for those vibrations of the world coming through it, to be alert and attentive, and to the reactions that are being produced in the mind. So anyway, that's why, as I've already mentioned many times, why we're trying to develop that attention to the breathing body. So the breathing, we're drawing the air in from the outside. So the first thing, it hits the outside of the body, either here, or you feel the expanding of the lungs, feel the clothing rubbing against the skin. So now you've found the outer body. So the breath helps you to get to the outer body. Because usually our mind is not on the body. It's thinking about other people's bodies, or it's thinking about, the past and the future, or just agitated, and it doesn't have that clear awareness of being relaxed and feeling the body. So that's why the mindfulness of breathing has the function of at least getting your attention to find the body. Look, if you go to how many have been to science lab in high school or college? Anybody? Bio lab, chemistry lab, physics lab? So if somebody says, hey, you got to go to the physics lab, you have to find the door, right? You have to walk on down the hall, room 101, biology lab. Then are you just going to look at the door? You have to open the door, right? So what does opening the door mean? So the breathing gets you the body, and you're looking at the outer body. Oh, outer body. Okay. The door's still closed. So you have to open the door of the body, get under the skin. You start feeling under the skin. You get inside. And then then your mind kind of just keeps going deeper and deeper inside. Once you get centered in the body, start feeling the sort of the life force sensations and so on. You start to feel subtler and subtler things. And then you start to actually see your thoughts. At that point, when you can start feeling subtle sensations, a magnetic field of awareness that begins to emerge into consciousness. Because it's no longer feeling this and identifying with the gross outer body, because now it's feeling subtler sensations. And this is really the key for deepening concentration and insights. And that's what being grounded in the body, you get in touch with the feelings. So when you're sitting there and you can feel lots of sensation on the body, you're not reacting, maybe even some unpleasant sensation, you can kind of just watch it without trying to remove it, or other little aches and pains. You hear sounds, you're no longer reacting to them, thinking about them, because now that the mind is centered deeper inside. So it takes longer to go and react to something. So this is what I call the buffer zone, magnetic field of awareness. It creates a magnetic field between the objects and the observing awareness, which gives you a split second to think clearly. Do I need to scratch that itch? Is it really that bad? You can say no. You can say, give it 5 seconds, it'll change. Give it 15 seconds, it may disappear. Or that sound that's bothering you. How many people this morning, there was a certain sound going on. Then all of a sudden it just stopped, like the sound of the heater fan or something. How many people were getting a little bit irritated, the sound of the heater fan or whatever was going on, and you started, and all of a sudden it just stopped, just like that. And all of a sudden it vanished. Total silence. It's like you wasted all that time thinking about it when it was going to stop anyway. It was going to disappear. That's impermanence. That's why the teaching of impermanence is very integral to succeeding in the practice of meditation. So but that can only come about when you've developed that. Excuse me. So there's an unpleasant sensation in the throat, but can't really control that. Can't control everything. So that's why the first stage of the meditation is getting centered in the body and just remembering it. Actually, meditation, the word meditation, it's an English word, right? But it's a translation of the Pali Sanskrit words of bhavana, or some other words. But anyway, it's spelled MEDI for a reason. What does the prefix MEDI stand for? Some of you doctors might know that. What other words start with MEDI? Medicine? Anything else? Medium. Anything else? Media, mediator. What do all those words have in common? Yeah, implying something is a bridge between the opposites. So you take medicine is a bridge between sickness and health, right? A mediator sits between two arguing groups of people trying to resolve their differences. A medium tries to converse with spirits and the human beings, right? In the media, forget the media. It's really messed up. But anyway, they try to flesh out the truth. So anyway, what does meditation mean? That's why it's called meditation. Nothing. What is meditation sitting in the middle between?
Past and the future.
Right, the past and the future. That's what we call the dualities. So the past and the future, our mind is constantly just moving between past and future, very rarely stopping in the middle. And then, anything else?
Inside and outside.
Yes, but something even more important than that.
Mind and body.
pleasure and pain. Pleasure and pain. And then the third one is me and you. That means duality. Me and the other. And the mind is constant. 90% of the time. That's every single one of our reactions. It's either caught going between me and the other. You did that to me. Give it to me. And pleasure and pain. Every time you move the body, that means you're trying to get away from pain, and you want to find some more pleasurable feeling. And even your thoughts. There's painful thoughts, pleasant thoughts. People escape into fantasies, trying to create some fantasy about, they know they'll never be able to reach it, but they get some, enjoyment out of, thinking about something, They had $1 billion and they could just do anything they wanted to in life. So, and that's what causes the frustration, because we can't defeat that. We can't get around that. We're always going to be disturbed by pleasure and pain, by the past and the future, except if you bring your mind to the middle. And it's like time. Now, a pendulum on a clock, when it's going tick, tock, then the minute hand keeps moving, right? Is it? And then the minute hand moves, and the hour hand moves, and time moves on. What happens when the pendulum stops in the middle? Time stops, right? So when the mind is resting in the middle, not thinking about the past and the future, the sense of time stops. And that's how you experience the present moment. The present moment is a vibration of your mind, not some places outside there in the world where you're going to go back to in time or go forward in time. But it's how our mind creates the idea of the past and the future, and then all of our worries come because of it, because you think, I'm not going to get what I want in the future. Or you're afraid that this pain is going to come back to you again from the past. Somebody you broke up with, or some other problem, or that lie you told 10 years ago, or whatever. See, all that creates disturbance in our mind, doesn't it? So that's why the practice of mindfulness, the mindfulness training, is learning how to keep the mind in the middle. And the body and the breathing is about the only real connection we have to do that. Because it's the only thing that is with you all the time. From the moment you are born to the moment you die, your breath pretty much all the time is going in and out. You could use other things like the heart beating and so on, but that's harder to feel than, the breathing. And the body's always here. That's nothing else is reliable. Your mother and father are not going to be there for you all the time. Your pet dog or cat is not going to be there for you all the time. Even your lover or anybody else is not going to be there for you, your best friend, because they're unreliable. But your breathing in the body is your only trusted friend, even though there might be pain in it, some difficulties, yet it's still there. And all you have to do is remember it. I'm breathing in and breathing out. I'm sitting, I'm standing, walking, I'm lifting my arm, turning the head. I'm thinking. And you just learn to be, and that's what mindfulness is. Mindfulness means noticing whatever is occurring in your body and mind at any one time. But it takes a lot of training. And by being mindful from moment to moment, that's the way you become concentrated. Because you have to be mindful of the things that prevent you from concentrating, like going to sleep, drowsiness. You're sitting in a bad posture, and then you start getting pains. So the mindfulness is like a watchdog. You know, watchdog? What does a watchdog do? What it's supposed to do? Bark at strangers, right? So mindfulness is like a watchdog in our mind. It barks at strangers. It means barks at the past and the future. It barks at, other things, a sound that's starting to annoy you. Whenever the mind is going out of that balance, when it starts going to the past, to the future, getting, disturbed, and mindfulness barks, sleepy, sleepy. So the moment you feel the head going down, woof, woof. you hear a sound, somebody slamming your door, and your mind starts to think, woof. It alerts you. So it's like early warning system. You ever heard of that? Airborne early warning system, the AWAC airplanes? Okay, anyway, it's an early warning detection. So when a pain starts arising in your body, you alert yourself, pain's arising, or something's crawling on my face. And then you have a few seconds to consider, is it really that bad? Is it really going to kill me? And you give it a few seconds, and then you see it changes and vanishes. Then you see the uselessness of getting worried about anything. Because if you give it 5 seconds, 15 seconds, 5 minutes, few hours, it's going to change. 90% of the time, or even 98% of the time, especially with the body, little itches, stinging, biting sensations, other discomforts, maybe you feel some sweat under your armpit or something in your mouth or whatever. So many hundreds and thousands of sensations are always, going on in our body. And when you're still, you can see the mind's reaction. Aversion, or desire. You can actually label the mental state. And that creates this kind of separation. It cuts the automatic reaction or the proliferating of thought about, and it allows you to stay in the present moment with the breathing body. That's how you meditate. And that's how you get concentrated, because when you're letting go of the distractions, you automatically become concentrated. That means concentration means the mind resting in the present moment. It doesn't mean lost and absorbed in one particular little object, which is what some people talk about. But it's that the mind that's resting in the present moment, in that mindfulness, keeping the mind in the middle. So anyway, that's basically what the practice is. And the longer you can keep your mind in that state, that when you become concentrated, the things don't bother you so much. And you'll be able to endure pains and stuff like that so much easier and longer. Or other distractions. And even your thoughts, you see your thoughts quicker. And as soon as you notice a thought, it will vanish. Because thoughts only stay in your mind when you give them attention. And you feed them with, I like it. I don't like it. But when you're alert enough to cut off those types of reactions, then the mind reverts and stays in its organic, its original present moment awareness. And that is the end of suffering, basically, or the happiness. But anyway, all this, it takes a lot of practice to gradually work toward it. But that's why it's called insight meditation. This form of meditation, the mindfulness practice, is called insight meditation. Because as you're going through this process, developing mindfulness, concentration, when you're seeing things, it's like, you get insights. You're like, wow. It's like aha moments. You get thousands of them. But you have to have the attitude of being a scientist. That's why whenever you go to sit down to start meditating, you have to have the attitude of being a scientist. And this body is the laboratory, and the concentration is really the microscope, the mindfulness. And you're just peering, you're peering down the body, and you feel in sitting, and you're feeling the subtle little vibrations in that. And that's why if you move, every time you move to get rid of a pain or, you disturb that process of settling. So that's why learning how to be mindful and endure discomforts is a very important part of the meditation training. Anyway, so I think I've gone on long enough in this talk. Hope I didn't cause any confusion in your minds. But, all of these are things that you can even think about in meditation. But it needs to, that's why first you need to have, become centered and grounded. Then the mind can more clearly observe and think about things without being distracted by them or being affected by them. You have to overcome drowsiness. The mind has to become clear and bright, like a polished mirror. But that takes time, and usually in a retreat, it takes several days or longer really to reach a state like that. But even on a short retreat like that, like this, you can at least hopefully make some little progress at the beginning. Okay. So if any questions may come up about that, you can write them down for the evening Q&A session on the papers in the hall during your break and so on. You can write the questions down. You have one question?
I have a question. You just mentioned, I don't understand much. Can you explain again why when you move, you cut off the vibration?
When you move?
Yeah, you said when you pain, you move.
You disturb the stilling. Let me give you an example. If you have a glass of water, let's say you scooped up some water from a gutter in the slum, or somebody who lived in a slum all their life, they think water is brown. They think water naturally has little things floating around in it. If they never saw clean water, right? So let's say you scoop up some water and you keep it on a table without moving it or without the wind blowing over it. Little by little, those particles in the water will settle down to the bottom, right? And then the water will become clear. And so now you see, water wasn't the brown. You see that, the color was due to the impediments in the water, the dirt in the water. But if you keep on bumping the table, the water won't be able to fully settle down. It keeps getting stirred up. So that's what I mean. Every time you get disturbed and want to itch, scratch, or look at something that disturbs that settling effect. And that's why the importance of learning how to have a good firm seat. And like why doing yoga and deep breathing are ways that you can develop the ability to sit through pain. You have a better circulation, your joints are more flexible, so the life force is flowing better. And, doing some deep breathing, the blood gets oxygenated, they're more alert, and so on. So all of that can help. But the main thing is that to sit still. And then the waves of the mind gradually settle more and more and more. And that's how you can see things more clearly. Because of this, that happened. Because of that, this happened. And you start to see and understand what you read about in the Buddha's teachings about impermanence and suffering. Attachment brings suffering and so on. These are the insights that come, but only when you have developed that level of mindfulness and concentration. And that's why in a retreat like this, why all the various guidelines that we have, like try to move mindfully, and why I have you to make pauses between your actions. Like in the walking meditation, I say, you come to a corner, stop. Pause a second. See the desire in your mind to turn, and then mindfully turn. Pause again, then start walking. Pause again, turn. Those pauses are very important. And I said, how many people, when you finished your lunch, got up and immediately forgot about pausing, and started just immediately walking away with your plate? Anybody do that? Remember that? That's why I say, every time you stand up, pause, take at least one deep, slow breath, better 2 or 3, and feel that present moment, and then clearly know what you're going to do, and then mindfully. So if you do that, between every major change of posture and so on, all of that will help build up that kind of mindfulness. Okay, so now we're going to stand up in a minute, but first, now you've all been kind of looking up here and focusing outside. So see how fast you can bring your attention to the body. So just kind of straighten up for a moment. Close your eyes. Just take a deep, slow breath. Really expand your lungs and chest, and hold the air in your lungs for as long as you comfortably can, or for 4, 5, 6 seconds. Feel the subtle vibrations from that. Feel the outline of the sitting body. And slowly breathe out. Try to feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs. Feel that contracting of the lungs. Follow it down to the bottom, the last moment where it stops. And just pause there, feeling that vibration. Breathe in again. Okay. So now you can mindfully stand up, stretch your legs. That's just an example of. Now, if I ever told you just to go ahead and stand up, all of you would have just bolted right up quickly, and probably missed a lot of nice vibrations. Right? Sides. Do some deep, slow breathing. Close your eyes. You feel the outline of the standing body. Keep reminding yourself of standing. The outline of the standing body in the mind's eye. And begin some deep, slow breathing. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Just breathing in, standing. Breathing out, standing. Just tuning into the vibrations. Feel the clothing touching the skin on different places. Feel your eyes in the sockets. You feel the sensations of the skin stretched over the front of the skull or face. Feel the subtle little prickly or stretched sensation, face, skin, forehead, nose, cheeks. And take a couple of deep, slow breaths. Try to feel the air flowing through the nostrils. You might even hear the sound if you take a deep breath. Hold the air in the lungs a few seconds. Breathe out, feel the air going out of the nostrils. Now, try to feel your tongue inside the mouth. Just point the camera of awareness at the tongue in the mouth. Feel where the tongue may touch your teeth, or other parts of the mouth. Feel the lips touching together. Feel the dryness or the moistness in the lips. Present moment sensation. There's no past or future connected with it. Be aware of any thoughts coming through the mind. Now move the attention to your shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Feel the clothing touching the skin of the shoulders. Feel any aches or pains that might be in the shoulders. Feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Arms weigh a couple pounds each. Feel that weight. Feel the hands and fingers. Feel the subtle pulse of blood or tingling sensations. Your hands and fingers. Thumb. Feel that subtle organic aliveness. The life force. Now feel the whole pelvic region, buttocks, pelvic region. Been sitting for an hour, so the buttocks were all compressed together, and now they're kind of able to expand back, filling with blood. Should be lots of sensation. And feel the straight legs going down towards the feet. Feel the clothing touching the skin of the leg. And feel the feet pressing the floor. Feel the socks touching the skin of the feet. Just remember standing, standing, standing. Just feel all those sensations in your feet. The hands and the feet have the most sensations in the body. The blood has to reach the end of the fingers, turn around and come back There's more pressure in the fingers, also in the toes. Those are always good places to focus on if the mind is dull. If you can't feel anything else, you can always feel your feet or fingers. To remind yourself of here and now, the present moment. Let the awareness kind of move back up and rest on the eyes again. Just feel the eyes resting in the socket. And the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. You listen very carefully, you might feel the blood pulsing in the capillaries of the eye. Or the REMs, the rapid eye movement. From that point on the eyes, open up a bit, feel the outline of the body, feel the head. And expanding outwards to again feel all those different parts of the body. Just try to hold that silhouette outline of the standing body in the mind's eye. Video camera of awareness. Just imagine that your eyes were a video camera. Videotaping a standing body, all the different sensations, breathing, might be able to feel the heart beating, clothing touching the skin. Standing. When you repeat the word standing, the mind knows what standing is, what helps you to hold that image of a standing body in the mind's eye. Present moment awareness. And be alert for subtle thoughts moving through the back of your mind. Any urges to move. Or any random thoughts that kind of just rise up. Very subtle. You might notice like a subtle stream of different thoughts moving through the awareness, sort of like the advertisements or the news things that run across the top of your computer screen. You can ignore most of them. Turn up the power of the mental microscope to notice subtle sensations, vibrations, subtle body movement. Be alert for any unpleasant sensations, or aches or pains pulling at the attention. Standing, standing. And notice how quickly so many different sensations arise and vanish, change. Okay, now we want to make one turn or walk around the room just to get the energy moving more. Just join the rectangle around the cushions. As I explained this morning, when you get to each corner, come to a full stop, mindfully turn, be aware of the intention or thought to turn, mindfully turn, start walking.